the deck is about 5 by 5. I've built in a number of projectors. This is the funnest part of the van. What's up guys, my name is Quin. I'm a traveling photographer by trade, and this is my box truck. So it's basically the same vehicle that U-Hauls are made out of. Let me show you guys around. So stepping in, there's this huge step. So I only used a small portion of the step and a lot of it was left over. So I felt the need to use that rest of that space for a shoe stash down there. It holds about, I don't know, 5 pairs of shoes if I really cram them. And then up from the shoe stash, this is where all my electrical is. So we got charge controller, bus bars, all that good stuff. And then the rest of the electrical actually just goes down from there. So then we got the inverter and the DC to DC charger and the batteries. So have a 2000 watt inverter, 300 amp hours of lithium, and a 60 amp DC to DC charger, stacked 4 deep right there. And then next to it is the toilet that slides out, and it all functions as a bench, just like that. A little bit more storage in here. Up here we got a light. So I put in these lights just to kind of have like a glowing window aesthetic. So it's all very Japanese and soji screen, like rice paper here. So right now it's light outside, so it's a little hard to see, but at night it definitely has that glowing kind of cozy feeling. So we got the inverter switch on and off, battery monitor, we're at 100%. Up here, this is the main storage of the whole build. So all 3 of these open up and it's just this huge open storage. This whole build is meant to be kind of like an office on wheels that converts to a hotel room. It's not meant to be a full home build. So the idea up here was to pick up a friend, maybe they have a suitcase, and to keep it as open as possible to be able to throw in that suitcase. So it's not as compartmentalized as most of my builds are. It's just kind of meant to be left a little bit more open and ready to adapt to a suitcase or something like that. All the wood that I use in here is poplar wood. It was quite a lot of work. For instance, like this panel. Poplar doesn't come in plywood sheets or anything like that. It comes in long strips. So I had to glue together probably about 5-inch slats to make all these panels. Up here, this is the vent fan. I built this frame for it so that I could have a blackout curtain that pulls across. I've always wanted an easy way to black out a vent fan like that. Right here, this is the door to the cab. This fabric also can go up into this cavity so that I don't have to deal with that flapping around if I have the windows open or something like that. It's not flapping in my face. For the most part, I keep it down like that. I've been a traveling photographer since 2014, and it was pretty clear right in the very beginning when I took off. I had a Toyota Corolla, and it was pretty clear that I wanted something bigger, and I started to see Sprinter vans and all kinds of vans on the road, and it's just like, that was it. That was the way to go. It was kind of like the no-brainer of what I needed. At the time, I didn't have any money. So it was just kind of like I stored it in the back of my head. This is the goal. This is what I want to do eventually, is to finally be able to afford a van. So 2014, that was my thought. By 2016, I got my first van. So yeah, I mean, in the end, I got into van life just for convenience of being able to take more photographs on the road, to be able to stay out longer and be a little bit more comfortable so that I could focus on my craft of photography. I didn't want to feel like I was sacrificing to be on the road. I wanted to take all the conveniences that I wanted on the road with me so that I'd be able to stay out for, you know, weeks on end to get that perfect shot. So when I was talking to my friend about designing this, he wanted me to do an office on wheels. So we started to think, you know, what does an office usually have in terms of a kitchen? And we determined that a fridge was a necessity and somewhere to warm up leftovers. So right here, this is the fridge, and then this is the freezer. That's a Dometic CFX dual zone 75 liter. It's a pretty big fridge for a small van like this. And then up here we have the way to warm up leftovers in this small little toaster oven. That was originally the idea for the kitchen. Since then I realized I kind of wanted a little bit more to the kitchen, so I added in some of these makeshift features to make it more of a kitchen, with a flip up counter and a flip down water jug. And I just bought this thing off of Amazon. This is kind of a pop out sink. Throw it up like that, and then you got a little sink like that. So the only thing it doesn't have is a drain. So unfortunately, when I wash dishes or whatever, I have to take this and throw it out the door. But other than that, it's kind of like a half mini kitchen in this build. Overall, that's not the main focus. Main focus is the desk setup and the ability to work on the road. Also in the kitchen, if I want to cook, I can raise this up to counter height, flip this out. And back here, I have a bunch of stuff stored behind the fridge. I have this induction stove with a plug right here. Throw this pot up there. I can cook up some eggs or whatever I'm feeling. Have cutting board and also a broom that extends out. A full-length broom down there. Also down here, I have a Webasto gas-powered heater. The heater turns on right here, and it comes out down here. There's a little outlet down there. So when I'm not cooking, usually this thing is down a little lower. I built in some drawers here. This first drawer is usually where I keep my camera equipment, so it has this locking feature. Flips up like that. Able to lock this drawer. Down here, this is just some food, and down here are some kitchen utensils, cups, plates, all that good stuff. So along with the Office on Wheels theme of this van, I've built in a number of projectors. So one of the projectors comes down right here. The whole thing just covers up this area. The official projector unit is right behind the camera here. I'll show you that in a minute. All right, in keeping with the Japanese aesthetic, I added some floating lantern lights that are both dimmable, and the other main lighting is around the skylight here. On top of the lights are wireless chargers, so you can throw your phones up there and charge them when you need. I've got a little pop-up outlet right here. You hit that button and it pops out like that. So the main desk setup usually incorporates this table. I'm gonna move this table, put it into this lagoon mount here. All right, so this is the main desk. Can fit a good number of people, maybe 6 people in here. And we got that projector screen that I showed you. You can bring that down and give business presentations. So this is the desk setup. The whole thing also converts into a bed. So I would say it's an office that converts into a hotel room. That was the overall concept of this van. The first van was a terrible experience. I switched that for a Honda Element. And that was actually a better experience than my first van. And in the process of making that, I guess, third van, I realized that I just love the process of designing and making vans. So since then, it's just become a passion and a hobby of mine to continually redesign small spaces, vans basically, into exactly what I would want and need. It's just become a fun hobby and creative outlet for me. So when I get burnt out with photography, I start designing vans, and when I get burnt out with vans, I go back and take photos. So it's nice to kind of bounce off of each other, have 2 different creative things. When making vans, it feels like I'm actually creating. Feels like I'm actually physically, you know, creating a space and a feature. The creativity that I experience while making vans was probably a more pure creativity where I'm actually physically constructing something, and I love that aspect of it. All right, so one of my favorite features, maybe my ultimate favorite feature of this van, is the back deck. So this whole section is on what's called a happy jack system. It's a bed lift system. I'm able to raise and lower this, so I raise it up, and that frees the back deck to pull out, just like that. Expanding the square footage from 10 feet to 15 feet. So the deck is about 5 by 5. I also have flip down legs. These are called stage legs. They're used to make stages for events like New Year's Eve or something like that. If you have a big stage, you need to build it. They use these stage legs. So that's the back deck, and then can lower this back down. You have a whole walk-through space. Makes it feel quite a bit bigger, more square footage. My favorite use of the deck is pulling up to the beach and pulling it onto the sand. And all these benches are free-floating benches. So the whole bench can actually just lift out and slide out onto the back deck. You could actually make the bed out on the deck too. I've always wanted to pull this out over like a stream in Colorado or something. Have this nice bed set up right over rushing water. So that's on the bucket list with this van. One of the first things I did to the van was cut a huge hole in the roof. This hole was, I think, 5.5 feet by 20 inches or so. So this is an ultimate custom skylight. I would not do this again. It leaks, and it's gone through probably 5 different iterations. But it is really cool. It lets in a lot of light, and if you haven't noticed, there's no windows on the van. So even when it doesn't look like there would be much natural light in here, this lets in a ton of light. So I'm still perfecting the design, but let me show you how it works. So it has 3 latches on each side that you can pop off like that. So that side's free. Do this one. And then the whole piece of glass, which this is plexiglass, pops out. It can slide up onto the solar panels here. And then you have a full open ceiling. Now let me show you why I wanted that open ceiling. This is the funnest part of the van. I showed you that it's on a Happy Jack bed lift system. When the skylight's off, it creates that big opening, and at any point, you could go straight through the roof while you're working on the desk. So this is one of the most ridiculous features I've ever made. My friend Tim, who I made this for, wanted to be able to levitate through the roof. So this was a total experiment, and I would say it generally worked. I don't know how often I'll actually use this, but it's really fun and cool to be able to do it. So by the time you get to the top, you're above the roof and you get the view of wherever you're at. So when you get up here, admire the view, take in the breeze. Got all this deck space that you could throw drinks on or whatnot. And just imagine that I have a laptop right here. I could work with a view. So even though the van is done being converted, at any point you can adjust it to whatever you're doing at the time. So if you want to embrace the outdoors, you can set up the benches and work outside here. You could work up on the roof. You could even set up the bed out here. You could set the bed up inside. So let me show you how the bed converts, how the benches convert into a bed, and that's kind of like the hotel room version of the box. To convert it to a bed, I have this piece of folding wood that goes right in the middle to create that platform, and then the cushions get rearranged into making a bed. First I have to take off this part and relocate it over here, and then I'm good to convert it. So there we go, that's the bed setup. And in bed, there's also another projector to use while you're chilling. So this is the second projector, hooks in with the HDMI cable, and it broadcasts right onto that rectangle. So I use this one all the time when I'm laying in bed. So one of my best friends, his name is Tim Sykes. I travel the world with him, honestly. I've been traveling with him for 6 years. He's a stock trader, and he's a really big personality. So one day we were road tripping, I think in Georgia or something like that, and he basically said, "You never stop talking about vans. Why don't you just make me a van?" And so that's kind of like when the whole collaboration idea started. I started asking Tim, what would you want in a van? And he started throwing out the most ridiculous ideas. Like, I want to push a button and the walls to fall off, and then all of a sudden I'm outside. I'm like, yeah. Most of his ideas were kind of just me shaking my head and laughing, you know. And then one of his ideas was, you know, if I make a good trade, because he's a stock trader, if I make a good trade, I want to be exalted through the ceiling. I want to just like raise up into the heavens. And with that one, I was like, well, there is a Happy Jack system that enables you to lift up and down, so maybe I could work with something in that. So that was kind of like the nugget of the idea for this van. So I told Tim, like, I'm gonna look into it. Maybe you could, you know, hit a button and go through the roof. And my next 8 months were spent trying to make that happen. So that's this van. He's stoked on the van. I'm stoked that he's stoked. And we film videos in here. He can do online tutorials with all these projectors that I put in here. And overall, I just wanted to make him a pimped out office on wheels, kind of like Pimp My Ride style. I loved watching that show growing up, so this is my version of that. And the Japanese theme is because we've traveled to Japan together, and it's Tim's favorite country. He wants to do a full like sushi chef episode in here where someone comes in and makes sushi on the table. So I've left the outside blank just for that anonymity. I've always thought about putting a big decal on the side like Bob's Towing Company or something like that, but just never got around to it. Kind of like how blank it is. Generally, to blend in, especially like right now, we're in this industrial park, this thing blends in perfectly. So I full-time live in a Sprinter. This is a collaboration that I did with a friend of mine. It's interesting that in certain places, like where we are right now in this industrial park, this is the van to have to blend in. And then in other places, like at the beach or higher end neighborhoods, they really don't like seeing this. But when you pull up in a Sprinter, they're excited to talk to you about it and just happy to have you in their neighborhood. So I've noticed that different vehicles, you can kind of leverage the type of vehicle that you have to the location depending on where you're trying to sleep. So when I got the van, this side door wasn't here, and the back doors was a roll-up door. I had to cut out that roll-up door, put in swinging barn doors, and this side door is actually the one that I use 90% of the time. So has a little connection there for it to stay open in the wind. And that's our main entrance. Thanks for watching my tour, guys. If you want to follow me on Instagram, I'm at Quin's Van. I'm currently working on my 7th van. It's a 4x4 Sprinter. So follow along there if you're interested. And maybe I'll see you out there on the road.